This is For Home in Heaven, a podcast about living faithfully in the everyday with eternity in mind. All right, hey everybody, welcome back to For Home in Heaven from Fidelis Terra Farm. I'm Noah.
And I'm Mary.
And we wanted to really thank you guys for coming back for episode 2. I know that if I was just out in the podcast world, I'd definitely reconsider. Jokes aside, though, no, really excited to be here again. I think one thing that we want to talk about today, so I think we wanted to have kind of a general theme for every episode. Obviously, that may or may not change. We'll see as this thing kind of goes along. But I think one of the things that we try to lay out in the first episode is heaven is really the main goal when it comes to moving forward and moving our family. That's kind of the driving factor. And so I think one of the things that we want to always do is showcase how we're trying to do it. And again, every way is a little bit different, but the main goal is how do we continue to go towards Jesus and towards heaven. And so today, I think what we want to talk about is how are we trying to get our family to heaven. So a little bit of our backstory in terms of our personal faith lives, but also how are we incorporating that into our daily lives? What are we trying to do? What have we not done? And what are we doing that we can be a little bit better?
Yeah, so I think starting with our backstories, like in the first episode, we had mentioned that we were both raised devout Catholics. However, our upbringings, although very similar, were a little bit different. Unlike Noah, I was not homeschooled. My parents were devout, were and are, I should say. They still are. My dad is going to be a deacon, so devout Catholics. But they raised my siblings and I all, I would say like your typical devout Catholic family. We went to Catholic school. It was incorporated in our daily life at home. Hello. Sorry, we've got Claire with us and she's starting to wake up. It was incorporated in our lives at home. We went to Mass every Sunday. You know, my siblings and I were very involved in church. I mean, we were altar servers, Eucharistic ministers, lectors, ushers, everything like that. And besides church and besides Catholic school, we did incorporate it. I mean, we prayed before meals, we prayed before bed. We talked openly about the faith in our house. And I think that only set the tone. My parents did a really good job of setting the tone for me and my siblings to kind of make that choice as we got older. So after I had I call it my reversion, or like your, oh my goodness, the Lord loves me moment, my senior year of high school, I was just about 18 years old. That's when it really hit me for the first time, like, wow, this is something I really want to hold on to and I really think is super important for me in my life. And I have that desire to bring it, to others around me, whether it's friends or family or my future family or things like that. So as I went throughout college, I really dove headfirst into my faith and got involved in a lot of ways, and it became very, very personal for me. Thankfully, when I met Noah my senior year, he was all I had prayed for. I'd prayed for a man that was had that same desire and that same drive for the faith and to bring up children in the Lord and in the Catholic faith. And so that was just kind of a huge answer to my prayer after all those years of being able to find somebody that had that same desire as me. I know not a lot of people can have that, but I truly think if something as strong as like a faith, if you have that desire for a future spouse, I really think the Lord is going to be good in that sense and help lead you to the right person, with that, who has the same mindset as you.
Yeah, no, and I think my story was very similar, albeit kind of in a different roundabout type of way. So I think similarly, oldest of 9 kids. So obviously, the joke there is that my parents were very Catholic, but then kind of all throughout growing up, we were homeschooled. So we had a lot of opportunities throughout the day to whether it be kind of put faith into action and visit others, and like visit nursing homes and things along those lines. Also go to daily mass from time to time. Try to really incorporate things like the rosary into our daily life. And then on top of that too, it was something that was kind of like really drilled in kind of our homeschool curriculum, which is one of the beauties I think of homeschooling is that you're able to really put faith at the center and make it so not only are you learning about how to pray and how to pray better, but also learning the history of your faith, and so that you can really know what the faith is all about. Additionally, Connecticut in general, it is, especially the Northeast, was a lot quieter in terms of just religion. And so Catholics, there wasn't a lot of Catholic homeschoolers that we had growing up. And so we got in with a couple of really awesome homeschooling communities that were Protestant. And so that really kind of helped to, I could say, round out my faith, just because I think Catholics they get a lot of things right, but some things that they don't do as well, especially when it comes to when it comes to like the Bible as an example. So I think Catholics, like, again, knowing what I know now, I know that Catholics, like, are like one of the supreme biblical authorities. But that say, I think that the everyday Catholic doesn't take it as seriously as they should. And I think that's something that having a lot of awesome brothers and sisters in the Protestant faith really showed me and helps to kind of again round things out for me a little bit more. Similar to Mary, I think everyone kind of goes through those high school years where you're a little bit like wishy washy, and then you really need to have that kind of come to Jesus moment where you have that call it a reversion or kind of you decide for your own yourself, because I think a lot of times the beauty of growing up in the faith and growing up where your parents are kind of are guiding you is that you have all the right tools, but a lot of times you need to find it on your own.
Mhm.
And so similarly, it was kind of end of high school. I had kind of a weird college setup anyway, where I basically did community college instead of high school, but it was kind of like the end of that time period where I really got involved in a lot of campus communities and stuff like that. And I think it became ever more important and ever more kind of clear to me that this was like the faith that I wanted to follow, and this is something that I wanted to kind of do for the rest of my life and do it well. I think is the big thing. And like Mary said, it was kind of always looking at who can I kind of match up with that also has the same values, because I think there's certain things that you can kind of gloss over a little bit more when it comes to finding, like, the perfect spouse, and there's a couple things that I think are extremely important that you need to be 100% in lockstep in. Number 1 is raising kids, like, how are you gonna raise your kids? And some of those other values kind of related to that, but then I think first and foremost is your faith. If you have a spouse that does not share your faith values, I think that's gonna be the biggest problem, and it's gonna
Mhm.
probably cause a lot of issues very early on. And I
Yeah,
think the
faith,
faith
politics, and finances.
yeah, I think if you can kind of line up on a lot of those things, I think you'll be fine, with any other disagreements, but, no, similarly, like, Mary and I, the way that we met is just was awesome, and it kind of really kind of was exactly what we're looking for,
Mhm.
and it really was just another in a series of God moments, how we came together. But again, I think all throughout it, like being raised in it is something, but also like I feel kind of jealous sometimes people who convert to Catholicism, Christianity in general, because again, you have kind of that fervor that continues to grow. Whereas when you're raised in it, sometimes it's a little bit harder where
Mm.
you're used to it, you do it every day, and you're trying to it kind of gets a little bit minutia, or turns into minutia. And so I think continuing to live your faith is something that's really important. That's why sometimes, like I said, I get jealous of people who have recently converted because they are, like, are just 100% on fire, but I think that's the
Mhm.
important thing is how do you continue to look for that, and how do you continue to grow in your faith
Mhm.
day after day after day, and again, on that journey to heaven, which is, never ending until you get there, so
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes too, now that we're parents, I guess going on to our next little bit too, is how do we initiate or I guess get our kids excited about the faith or I guess yeah, how do we how should I say that? How do
like,
we
just bring it into our daily life.
yeah, how do you bring it to our daily lives in the home? And now that we've got so we have 4 children, our oldest is 5 and our youngest obviously is a baby. When we first had even just our oldest two, we had I don't know, a 1.5-year-old and a newborn or a 2-year-old and an infant basically or whatever. And so you're thinking about how do we bring in our faith with that, but it's not as serious. I mean, yes, you wanna, show them about praying and, teach them little things like the sign of the cross or point out crucifixes and Mary and icons and things like that and kind of get them, even not so much interested, but just like so it doesn't seem like it's foreign to them, I guess, if they walk into a church or if they see a book or something like that. But now that we have daughters who really they wanna have, like, full conversations, our 5 and our 3.5, almost 4-year-old, like, they really want to they have a lot of questions about everything, faith or not. They really wanna be involved in so many aspects. Our oldest was just telling me the other day that she's a chit chatter, and now that she doesn't take naps anymore, she likes to have adult conversations and just chit chat, she tells me. And so she wants to chit chat about everything. So I'm like, "Well, great, let's chit chat about the faith," you know? And so I think now we're really learning, okay, how do we take something like the Catholic faith and make it where our daughters and our son and all them are understanding, but also it's not over their head, because we don't, little children are so naive in such a sweet, sweet way. You want to get them excited and to know and learn to love the Lord and love their faith, but in a way that their brains are going to be able to comprehend it. So that's kind of the thing that we're starting to do right now in our home.
Yeah, and I think too, it's relatively simple in the grand scheme of things. Like, I think first and foremost, what we've done is really kind of just try to establish that relationship with Jesus. And obviously, right now, I think there's kind of a not a full understanding again because they're so young, but I think kind of continuing to point things toward Jesus. So something good happens in our life, something bad happens in our life, I think that the idea is kind of how do we openly pray about it? How do we openly talk about it and kind of point back to Jesus and the faith? And so I think it's starting small like that with some of our children. Like Mary kind of mentioned some of the daily routines. So like praying over meals as in just a very
Mhm.
small example. Like how do we do it? So like Jesus was just gifted us with this food. How can we thank him for that? And or even other silly things like we see an ambulance go by, and we say a little prayer and say, Jesus, can you please watch out for that person? And starting small things like that, and even
Mhm.
all the way up to like going to bed, like tucking them in. Even if everyone's exhausted, everyone needs to go to sleep. Very simple, like Jesus watch over Margot and Ava as an example of and as they go
Mhm.
to sleep. And so I think it's starting off really, really small like that and kind of creating those kind of small connections, but again, to Jesus and to the faith. And then as they get older and as questions form and stuff like that, kind of starting to kind of bring that into it. But I think again, it's starting very, very simply
Mhm.
and kind of again making that connection to Jesus and to the faith and how and make it so that it's something that they can understand and that they can really grasp and continue to go on and on with.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause at the end of the day, as parents, right, raising your children, I should say, in any Christian faith, obviously, we are the first, theology teachers our children get to experience, and so we wanna make sure what we're doing is we're doing well, and we wanna make sure whatever we're doing is not gonna create confusion for the child, is not going to cause them to question anything. I mean, they should question, especially as they get older and they get to be I guess I should say even junior high, high school years, it's good to question. It's good to have our children question, but basically, it's how are we setting the foundation now and opening it up for discussion so they do feel comfortable, questioning or asking us things or doing research themselves and things like that, and just kind of creating an open dialogue in the home is a big thing, and that goes with doing our daily rhythms with the children to the way we discipline is how our actions affect, us and how, us and the Lord and all these sorts of things. And so it's we're not experts because we have young children, people. We're not experts. We are learning. There's things that we do that we're like, yeah, that was not done well. Let's change that for next time because we are brand new parents. We're not out, we don't claim to be parenting experts or theologians. This is just what works best for our children in our home in this season of life. Ask us next week. It could be very different. So that's where we're at right now this week with all of that.
Yeah. No, and I think again, there's lots of fruits that come out of that.
Mhm.
Just I think the devotion that small children have, like in the Bible story of let the children come. I think the faith of a child is just so precious and pure, and I think that it really is something that kind of again I think going back to the point of like reinvigorating and kind of restarting the fire,
Mhm.
I think is really important. And then two, I think it also has the opposite effect where it kicks you in the pants a little bit of like, yeah, that you really need to do this because you have these little souls in your like in your guidance and in your care that need like if you don't catechize them and bring them up in the faith, like, that's your fault. And so I think it inspires because you get to see kind of some of the cool things, like, again, like, an ambulance drives by and, like, our oldest 2 are like, "Can we pray for whoever the ambulance is going to?" But then so that's inspiring, but then on the flip side too, you're like you have those moments of, like, "I need to do this right, and if I don't do this, like, it's it has eternal consequences." And so
Yeah, literally.
so I think it's,
Yeah, God calls us to parenthood, but he also calls us to responsible parenthood as well, and that includes, catechizing your children.
yeah, but
Mhm.
no, I think, but I think there's just always things of, where the faith comes into to play, and I think just again having faith and opening it up to the children and around each other, I think is extremely important. And I think God just shown us in so many ways, and it's always like it starts in small ways, but there's also really big ways as well, where just like crazy things happen. Like an example being this past week, yeah, this last week, just lots of stress with work, lots of stress, the car went out,
Car
the
situation.
bathroom flooded
Oh
randomly. There's
gosh,
just so
yeah.
there's like so much of random stuff,
Our
and
Sal's about to have babies any day, like, there's, like, a gazillion things right now that is just all over the place, it's been nutty.
it's one of those things too where, like, I think it's very, very easy to become overwhelmed, and I think the idea, like, again, like, by example, like, okay, putting that into to Christ's hands and letting him take control, and so, like, again, even like, that's probably bigger stuff, but, like, worked itself out. The bathroom isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. The car was a simpler fix than we thought it was gonna be. Like, it could have been, like, a multi-$1,000 fix. It was a couple $100 fix, and so, I think there's simple things like that where, again, full faith in Jesus and, like, really kind of offering up to him is something that's really, really important. Again, it's, like, first person to say, extremely difficult to do in the time that it's happening, and I think it, but again, just kind of doing that and getting into the habit of, okay, like, "Okay, God, like, this is outside of my control. This is outside of anything that we can do." Really just offering up to him and, like, uh, again, I think it puts you into to a good perspective where you're able to be you're able to be grateful of when things happen, but also even when the negative is happening, really be trusting and knowing that, okay, this is not something that I have any control over, and I'm okay with that, and that's something that I know that you will do, or kind of use to your glory.
Yeah, and I think so a specific example that I can think of kinda going along with this is, we all again, I've said it a gazillion times, I'll probably say it another gazillion times. None of this is possible without the Lord, and if He wants us to do this, He has to make it blatantly obvious and blatantly clear to no one I that He wants us to continue to homestead. And if not, then great. We wanna just be stewards and we wanna do whatever He asks us to do. But an example I have specifically is in the midst of all this craziness, right? We've had a lot of extra things come up, like with bills, with hospital bills, and like the car stuff, and just all sorts of stuff. It's life. It's what it is. Happens to all of us. But our food that we needing to purchase food for pigs and chickens and things like that. Noah's been really like sparse with it. I will say. Well, a few weeks ago, a neighbor that we hadn't even met yet. We've been here for 2 years now. One evening knocks. Actually, it was the night we were gonna. I think it was we were about to do this first podcast episode.
Yeah.
Actually, he knocks on our door and I'd never met the man before. And I go to the door and I'm like, hello. And he's like, hey, I'm so and so. I'm your neighbor from down the road. I see you guys have pigs. I have all of this produce I couldn't sell. Do you guys want me to dump off some produce for your pigs? And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be a blessing. So now I think 5 or 6 times in the last 2 weeks, we built that relationship with him. He loves the Lord. He wants to homestead as well. He has homestead before in his life, wants to do it again now in his 50s, 60s. And so every couple days he'll come by right when we're getting low on food. Boom, he comes back with a couple barrels of produce that he couldn't sell for our pigs and chickens. And it's such a small thing. Like it's not that big in the grand scheme of things. But that's just one of those ways where we're like, wow, Lord, like you're so good. Not only are you helping us build community, which we also pray for. We're brand new to this area. We're learning people in this area. We're starting to really get to know our community well. And we always say, like, help us be stewards of the land, help us be stewards of our finances, help us make this blatantly obvious you want us to do it. But also B, help us just find the community that's going to help support those dreams and those goals and those desires for us. And so not only did we, meet an awesome neighbor down the road who's going to help us support that, we're going to be able to help support him in his endeavors, but it's also feeding back to the animals and just in a way that we think, okay, we're going to need pig food soon. How are we going to make that work? Boom. And it's happened multiple times. And yeah, so it's little tiny things like that where you might not think about it, but if you really look back, you're like, wow, the Lord is really thinking about us and really blessing us and in that moment. Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think what's funny is I heard this recently about the story of Moses and how he wanted to see God and how God wouldn't let him see his face just because he would die of just sheer fear. But Moses was allowed to see him like walking away or see his back, depending on translation. And kind of the idea there is uh, God is only really evident in the past because you like if you were to see what he's doing kind of in front of you, you would just die of sheer just like I don't know, it would just knock you out. And so I think it's crazy again when you do look back, even just at the little things like that, like they add up so much, and that's just the things that we can remember. Like, there's how many times have you driven down the road that it should have been a car accident and it wasn't? There's just a lot of things like that. That again, the more you look at it, I think that's, I guess, another idea or another kind of thought to put in everyone's mind is like be like so grateful for everything that you have, and like even for the little things like that. Like again, that saves us, on pig feed, but also it's nutritious for the pigs and chickens. It again, it is a way to build up a community and build up, relationships with our neighbors, and so I think in general, there's so many different opportunities to look back at smaller things like that, but also it's bigger things as well, and see, like, there's so many things that God does for us and each and every one of us, and how can we continue to, really kinda make sure that we are grateful for that.
Mhm. And I think something too, not just us, but I know all of us, right? When we are in a season of busyness or a season of spiritual dryness, it's really hard to remember to, keep your faith alive. And it just seems like one more thing on your task list. I can never say that properly. It's one more thing on your task list to have to check mark. And but the thing is that a relationship with the Lord, taking time every day to pray or study the word or anything like that, you don't want it to seem like just a task that you just want to cross off. But it's really hard to not make it seem like that when you are so busy with whether it's work or whether you're in a new project with something or whether you have little children or you have a sick family member. It's really, really hard to remember to keep that alive. And so I think by just looking back and like having those moments of like, okay, like the Lord has been good to us. He's going to help us get through in the season of busyness. All good things, obviously, but he's going to help us and sustain us even when it feels like it's just one more thing on the to-do list.
Yeah. No, I
Hmm.
think one thing that kind of brings to mind too is how do you balance all that? Like, how do you balance the season of busyness, or maybe again, maybe you're not as busy, but you have a lot of things going on, or you're kind of in a minutia. Apparently, I love that word today. How do you balance it all? Like, how do we? I guess how do we balance it, but also how do you as an individual balance it? And so I think there's a lot of ways to do that because I think the funny thing is like people tend to try to fit their faith and their prayer life and all that stuff into a schedule. And I think that's the problem number one is like don't do that. Like obviously yes, you should have like scheduled time to pray, but also like it should be the other way around. Like your schedule should go around your prayer life, not the other way around. So I think but I think also too, like people think of it as like this, I need to be sitting down or kneeling down and praying. But like, I think there's so many opportunities, especially like when you are in a homestead, to pray. Like I know that me personally, like lots of times out in the garden, lots of times on the tractor and that kind of thing. And so like typically there's just pure silence. And so with that, I think that for me, that's a really good time where I get some really good quiet prayer time where again, like I have like ridiculously bad ADHD, and so sitting down, like, on a chair or kneeling down, like, I cannot stay focused in my prayers, and so I think one thing that's awesome about the homestead is, again, when you, like, make prayer part of your daily life, what happens is that, like, again, I'm working with my hands are occupied, and so that I can more clearly think, and while doing that, that helps me have really, really good prayer time, whether it be just be being so, so thankful, like, again, walking out and seeing, the or hearing the birds tweeting and seeing the sunset and all that kinda stuff, it's just something that, like, just total gratitude overflows me, just thanking God for everything that He's given us, but also, like, just having conversation, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think for me too, I actually agree with Noah. It's hard for me. Maybe when I was in college or pre-children, I could easily sit down and have some solid, quiet, don't move my body prayer time. But now, with four littles and I'm in the house with them all the time, I definitely do not have. I'm lucky if I get my oldest to take a 20-minute quiet time in the afternoon when the other ones are napping to have some time alone. I don't get that. And so for me, something that I've really learned over the last couple years actually is two things I can think of specifically is number one, when I'm folding laundry or washing dishes, every time I pick up a pair of little undies or some shorts or something, whatever, whoever child or husband who that's for, my one husband, I don't have multiple, that'd be freaking weird. My one or my children, try to, if I think about it, I try to say a little prayer for little Ben when I'm folding his shirts or Noah when I'm folding his socks. I try to say a prayer or I try to really dedicate something and it helps me get through laundry because I don't enjoy doing laundry, but it gives it a purpose for me is knowing that A, I'm getting a chore done, but also B, I'm able to pray for my family while doing it. Additionally, something else that I do is I put a small picture of Madonna and child, so like Mary and Jesus, Mary and baby Jesus, at my window above my sink. So when I'm washing dishes, and I'm in my kitchen a lot, like I'm in my kitchen washing dishes, washing hands, filling up cups, starting supper, making breakfast, cleaning. I'm in my kitchen all the time. And so for me, when I'm over the sink washing something or filling a cup or something, especially if I'm having an overwhelming day, all I have to do is just take a look at that image of Jesus and Mary to be like, all right, I want to be like Mary. I want to imitate the love she has for baby Jesus and her child Jesus. And I want that for my children. And I just want to give self-sacrificially, just like she did. And so that's kind of helps me like say a quick Hail Mary or just ask her, hey, can you just like help me just be more patient, stay with my children, help me just love them like you love Jesus. And so that's another way that I try to, as well, just within I guess, my daily homemaking life.
Well, I think too on top of that, another form of prayer is sacrifice. So I
Mhm.
think, like especially in the Catholic faith, but I think Christians in general, like just sacrifice in general is a good way to offer up different kind of trials and tribulations that you go through. through Jesus, either to Jesus directly, but also to kind of for others. 'Cause I think again, being young family, lots of times sacrifice, like waking up at midnight and you want to be sleeping, but again, you can sacrifice small things like that. But then, like it's kind of ironic. Least favorite day of the week, and time is like 8:30 to 11 on Sunday morning, because that's where we go to church. So, not the church part, which is ironic. It's the going to church with 4 children
Mhm.
really kinda sucks sometimes, specifically when they're all really young. And so which is really funny because, again, it's meant to be kind of a spiritually enriching thing, and it's meant to be something that's really important. We're trying to really form a, really important kind of connotation in our children's minds, about going to church and being, like, just present at church. But again, it's sometimes the worst day of the week, for me. Like, I wake up dreading it on Sunday mornings, most mornings. And again, it's like, okay, like, pull your head out of your butt, because that's not what it's about.
Yeah,
So
it's not
that's
about a
it's partly a discipline thing, but also it's like, okay, Jesus, I love you. I'm gonna do this even though I don't want to. I'd rather be sleeping. I'd rather be going by myself. I'd rather be doing anything else than bring
taking my children to mass,
think
my
yeah.
small children to mass, which just sounds horrible, but, like, I feel like we can't be the only ones that think that.
Well, it's not only that, but it's more so just, like, bringing kids anywhere that they need to sit still, impossible. And so,
Yeah.
like, the older ones are thankfully starting to get a little bit better, but again, it's one of those things where, like, it's like there's constant trips to the back and that kind of thing. And so, it's more so about just offering that up, like, offering up, like, as silly as it is, like, embarrassment when one of the kids throws a temper tantrum in the middle of church, or again, like, the back and forth, like, and again, like, offering up, like, "Hey, this is like, being here in general is I think a form of prayer as well." And so I think it's finding the little things, like, as part of your daily life, like, how do you continue to set the guidepost of heaven and Jesus, and find little ways throughout the day in order to continue to kinda move towards that, even when it's not a 30-minute Bible study that you're taking part of. It's more so of things like, how do you do the little things, make sacrifices? How do you do little prayers in the little pieces? How do you educate your children? How do you kind of take all these little pieces and continue to move forward and move towards that goalpost of heaven in the little ways? I think that's something that's extremely important, and that, again, I think it's something that everyone should be looking at more closely. Is like, again, it's not just one big kind of declaration. It's a bunch of little things. I think that you're constantly trying to move forward and move in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think something too to also remember is that especially when it comes to teaching your children and helping the faith become a part of their daily life. If you don't understand something or if the children ask questions, I know our oldest daughter, I don't know where she gets it. Well, she thinks very intuitively and she thinks her gears are always, always, always turning. And she's a very deep thinker. That's like Noah, very deep thinking. And sometimes she has questions that kind of throw me for a loop. But I'm like, I'm not going to lie, I really don't know the answer to that question. And I think that's good. If there's been times that she's asked me questions about the Catholic faith. And honestly, I will look to him and be like, okay, I know the answer, but how do I explain that to a 5-year-old? Because I honestly don't know. And I think it's humbling for the kids to see, oh, like mom and dad don't know this, but then to say, hey, like that's a really question. Honestly, I don't know. Let's figure it out together. It shows them that like it's good to question. Like you don't want your children to ever like stop questioning and stop asking questions about Jesus and who he was and why we believe what we believe and like why our church is Catholic and a church down the road is Lutheran. Like we want them to ask questions about that. But then to also say, yeah, I really don't know. Let's figure it out together. Then it becomes a teaching moment together and you can, really create that, I guess that excitement and that interest for them starting at a very, very young age.
No, I think if we were to kind of like distill that down, I think, it's really, again, what are ways that we, but also just you, at home, like, how do you look at the little things, I think, and how do you, again, really use Christ as the anchor? I think is the most important part. And like, it's so cliche, like having like Christ center your life, and like that sounds all well and good, but like, how do you, again, when you actually truly do that? I think a lot of things come into, like, again, those little things then kind of start to add on, where it's even when you're walking outside, getting the garbage or whatever else, like, that's where it starts to, just become a part of your everyday life. And I think that's what it really means to have Christ and your faith at the center of your life, where it's, again, every single moment of the day, there's ways that you continue to build on that.
Yeah. And I think something to remember too is that it's more than just, I mean, obviously, yes, you need to go to church every Sunday. Yes, you need to make sure you devote a certain amount of time throughout the week to the Lord. But just to it's almost discipline. It's having to just like remind yourself, or just think of the little tiny ways you can incorporate your faith into your everyday life. Whether homestead or not on a homestead doesn't really even matter. Just really disciplining yourself to being like, no, this is not about me. It's about the Lord, and it's about the love that I have for Him, and the way to just kind of say thank you and give back. So yeah, so really just think about the small ways in your life, whether, like I said, folding laundry, whether it's outside mowing your lawn, or heck, even grocery shopping and praying for people around you. Just try to be more aware of your surroundings, and really discipline yourself and think how you can take it outside of yourself, and think of the greater picture, I guess.
And I think too, like tying it back to the whole homestead thing in general, like, let's say you're not on a homestead yet, I think the important thing is, like, having the foundation here is by far more important. So, like,
Mhm.
like, obviously, getting to homesteading and all that is really a great place to be, but that said, if you have nothing in terms of your faith, then I think all of that is meaningless. And so, I think I if you're not homesteading right now, I think focus on this first and foremost. Like, make sure that you're in a really, really good place with this, and that, I think, will help to allow you to start those homesteading projects and things like that, a lot more easily, but I think you're just gonna be in a much better place. Like, at the end of the day, like, you can live in a 10 by 10 square room for the rest of your life, but as long as that you're kind of have that your eyes set towards heaven, that's all that really matters. Like, we can some people are gonna live in mansions, some people are gonna live on the side of the road. At the end of the day, if we all live a good life and we have faith in Jesus, we're all gonna be go to the same place anyway. And so, what you do on your day to day is less important. It's more important to really kind of prioritize this, and again, do the little things. Be grateful for what you have, and continue to kind of set that goalpost towards heaven.
Mhm. Yeah, ditto.
All right. So I think that's it for today. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. It's definitely a journey for us too. So
Mhm.
appreciate you all coming and listening.
Yes.
We will see you next time.
Yeah, check out our website if you haven't already. I've been sharing a lot of really awesome recipes that our family has been absolutely loving. And I know a lot of times people say, "Oh, we've been loving this recipe," but they're just like totally not. No, like legitimately the recipes that I've been posting lately, I think I've made them like multiple times. My family, they're not you guys aren't sick of them yet.
No, and it was
You're not sick of them yet.
what was the worst thing too. Like, not to go in total tangent because I could totally do that. Is these chairs just accentuate how much we enjoy your recipe. So, like, I can't sit straight in this chair, so, like, you can see my muffin and, chocolate bread gut right here. If you also want one of these, it doesn't come on its own. It comes through very delicious baked goods, which you can find the recipe for on fidelisterrafarm.com.
Baked goods, yes, but whole foods, also yes. So it's not like you're eating some processed whatever. It is whole solid food. So anyway, look at the website. Take a peek what we have there. Additionally, if you're local to our area, we are going to be taking reservations for pork very, very, very soon. So if you're anywhere, we do not ship, unfortunately, yet. Someday, maybe we'll ship. But we will be taking reservations for pork soon. So if you're local to the North Carolina, South Carolina area, you let us know. Also, like, subscribe, share, comment, do all the things. Review and rate us are we on Spotify? Are we on Apple? We're on Apple. Are we anywhere else? YouTube. Well, it's on our YouTube page. Are we anywhere else?
Those-
Those are the three main ones. So do all the things, spread the love, and we're going to come back for episode 3 in the next week or 2 or so.
Catch you next time.
See you guys later. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today. You can follow along or subscribe at fidelisterrafarm.com.